Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol character spotlight. And today we are taking a look at the first of the line of Wolverines. We're coming up on our third now. We have Logan in as our second one we received, and now the third one is coming out relatively soon. I don't know if we actually have a release date on that one yet, but we are looking at the original one today, the first of the James Logan Howlets. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump right into his stat card here. So he's coming in with a fairly varied stat card. It's actually one of the more interesting ones, just for like raw stats. So he's got a 4 physical defense, 3 energy, and 2 mystic. So a very clear kind of line of, you've got your above average with the 4, average with the energy there, and then a below average with the 2 on mystic. So some clear weaknesses right out the gate, but he is coming in with 7 health, which is definitely above average for the 4 threat slot that he is in. And then he is a size 2, and he's got a medium move, so nothing too fancy on those last two there. But yeah, so already he's got a fairly interesting stat line here, and he does actually change on the flip, so we'll be looking at that as well. But before we do that, we're going to get into his attacks here. So he has the first one is his Builder attack. This is an Adamantium Slash. It's a range 2 5 dice physical attack that's going to build him power based on the damage that he deals. And it's got 2 triggers, both off of a wild. So one wild will get you a Pierce and a Bleed. The Bleed is a fine condition to have just on a builder. It's a nice way of kind of getting extra damage without, it's delayed damage kind of, unless they choose to shake it or whatever. But then the Wild Pierce is also really, really nice, unless you're against someone with like Martial Artist where they're counting blanks anyways. This is a great way to help you build power a little bit faster. If you can roll that Pierce once in a while, it almost works as a extra success. So really, really solid ability to have there. That is all he has on his Adamantium Slash, but he does also have his Spender Berserker Barrage. So this is going to be a range 3 7 dice physical attack. It's going to cost him 3 power, and it has 2 things that happen. So the first one is before damage is dealt, he's going to place himself within 1 of the target character. So great way to get in close is you use the Spender, teleport within range 1, and then you can stab something else with your Adamantium Slash if you want, or you could do it to a different character and get some serious distance. And it says if this attack deals damage after the attack is resolved, if the target character is size 3 or less, this character may throw it small. So this is great. You get to do your spender onto maybe a target that's on an objective or something, hit them for a bunch of damage, teleport beside them onto their objective, and then throw them off of the objective all in one attack. Really, really good. Yeah, just a very solid spender all around here. No pierce or anything on this one, so you lose a little bit of that consistency, but you do have 2 extra dice as well, so that'll help make up for that for sure. That is it for his attacks, so he is entirely physical there. He doesn't have any way of mixing it up, so if he is going into things that are very physically defensive, you're going to have to be mindful that he might not be as good into them, but still he has some reasonably hard-hitting attacks here, which are made even better by his first superpower, which is the best at what I do. This is a 2-cost action active superpower, so it's going to cost you one of your actions. It says this character immediately makes a move action followed by an attack action, so starting out just kind of like your standard charge. However, when making this attack, each wild in the attack roll counts as 2 successes. This superpower can only be used once per turn. So this is really, really good if you are able to modify your dice at all so you can roll more wilds, or if you just get lucky and you roll a few of them right out the gate. Um, Very, very good with either of his attacks. Obviously, if you can use it on the spender, it's even better because you have more dice, so more chances on those wilds, and you've got the trigger on damage. But even on the Adamantium Slash, let's say you only roll 1 wild in your 5 dice attack. Well, that 1 wild counts as 2 successes and pierces one of their blocks and gives them bleed. So if that is the only thing you rolled, you might as well have rolled 3 hits and a bleed, assuming they block at least one, which is really, really good, turns out. So, yeah, best at what I do is a very strong superpower. Any type of charge is always good. Charges usually cost 2, so this just kind of has that extra thing as a little added on bonus. Don't rely on it too much. Those wilds can be very, very swingy. Sometimes you'll get them, sometimes you won't. But if you kind of just treat it as he's going to get to move and then he's going to make an attack that has a chance to spike really, really hard, but also is just an attack anyways, then you won't, screw yourself over by being like, well, I'm gonna throw 7 dice at a Hulk and one shot it from full health because all I'm gonna do is roll wilds. Probably not. But actually that would also require a bunch of crits. But you know what I mean. Don't rely on it too much. But it is there. It is really helpful, and there are ways you can manipulate it to make those wilds more frequent, and that's really powerful. So yeah, super good charge right there. And that's his only active or reactive superpower. He doesn't have any reactives here. So his next one is a passive superpower. It is Adamantium Skeleton. When determining if this character can be thrown or pushed by an effect or special rule, or when it is colliding with another character or a terrain feature, this character counts as size 3. So that is interesting. That matters for a few things. If most, I'd say about 50% of the time, this is a downside more than it's an upside to just him being size 3. Of course, it means he is harder to be pushed or thrown. A lot of things that can push or throw you can't do it to a size 3, but can do it to a size 2, more often with push than thrown. But there are cases where there are throws that only affect size 2. However, when he is thrown, he's going to count as a size 3. So if your opponent's throwing him at your own team, then he's going to be hitting your allies for more damage when he gets thrown at them. So you're going to have to be somewhat careful, somewhat mindful of that, that even though it says he's size 2, for the purposes of your opponent's turn, 99% of the time he's being treated as a size 3. The other kind of drawback to this versus him just being a size 3 is that if there is a size 3 piece of terrain you want to get past, you will have to do a climb action instead of a standard advance action to get over it, because he is actually only size 2. So things to consider. It's a nice superpower, very fluffy, and it works well with some of his other things, which we'll take a look at when we get into his cards. But yeah, it's a kind of solid, not necessarily a like bonus effect, but also not really a flaw. It's kind of a middle ground where it's got some drawbacks to it, but it's an interesting superpower or passive power, I guess. Next, he has a other passive, or his other passive things are Healing Factor 2 and Immunity to Stun. Healing Factor 2 is really good. Healing Factor is always really good. It gives you access to cards like Exceptional Healing, which are insanely good for keeping models alive, because otherwise you'll notice this guy didn't have any defensive tech on him, so Exceptional Healing is kind of his only defensive tech outside of just rolling dice. So you're going to have to be mindful of that when you're playing him. Definitely going to be making use of that exceptional healing to keep him alive at a key moment. But then healing factor 2 is really good because when it's his turn, if your opponent's been like chipping him down or something like that, healing factor 2 can do a lot to kind of undo some of their work. So definitely a very powerful ability to have. And immunity stun is always nice. He's not the most power hungry model in the world, but he does enjoy being able to build more than one power off of his slash, or when he's taking a bunch of damage, being able to build up power will also just help you afford things like that exceptional healing. So very useful for him to have both of those. When he flips over, he does change a fair bit. His attacks all stay the same, and all of his superpowers from his front side do still exist. But there are two, well, three, I guess, changes to his card. The first one is he does have 1 health lower on the flip side, so he's on that more kind of average 6 for a 4 threat. But as we already discussed, he doesn't really have any defensive tech, so it makes sense that he had above average health on the front side. And then we go into his superpowers, and he's got a couple changes here. The first one is Wild Rage. This is kind of the big one. And this is a new passive superpower that he gains that says add 1 die to this character's attack roll for each damage it has. Additionally, this character cannot interact with or hold objective tokens. So this is really interesting, especially when combined with things like exceptional healing. You can use exceptional healing to kind of control how much health your opponent is leaving him on. Obviously not perfectly. If they like spike him and would kill him with their first attack, and you burn exceptional, and then they either like choose not to attack him or they spike him and kill him again. There's not much you can do about that. But you can totally use this to be like, I have 2 health left, you only have 1 action left. I'm going to exceptional healing, leave myself alive on 1, and then I'm going to go with Wolverine, and he's going to have 5 extra dice on all of his attacks, which is really strong, especially when you combine it with that ability to count your wilds as 2 successes. Now, of course, this does have a downside to it. He cannot interact with or hold objectives. So notably, he can still contest and secure objective tokens. However, he can't interact, so if they're pay to flip ones where you have to pay a power to roll and see if you can take control of them, he unfortunately cannot play that game anymore on this side. And because he's injured for most, if not all, of the pay to flips in the game, he doesn't make it harder for your opponent to flip either. So definitely not a huge fan of those pay to flip scenarios. He likes the standard ones a little bit more. And of course, he can't play the extract game anymore when he's on this side either. So definitely something to be considered with him there. The other interesting thing with this is the way it works with Healing Factor, because Healing Factor heals you at the end of your turn, so you are getting those in the example we used earlier, 5 extra dice for your entire turn, and then you end your turn and you heal 2, so you're harder to take down for the next turn, which is just a really nice kind of synergy in his card. So yeah, it's a solid set of abilities that work really nicely together. And then the other thing that changes is he gains an extra immunity. He becomes immune to stagger on this side, which is nice. I've definitely been thrown off by this before of like, I flipped Wolverine and now I can't put a stagger on him, so I have to kill him, but you have exceptional and that's really awkward. So definitely something to acknowledge that's really good when you're playing against models that do throw out staggers. In the case of when I've had that situation come up, I was playing Hulk, and one of Hulk's favorite solutions is stagger you and throw you away if I don't kill you, right? So obviously losing the ability to do that to him is really good for Mr. Wolverine here. So yeah, that is Wolverine's card. He's got an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead, take a look at his tactics cards, and then we'll talk some synergies and affiliations. So Wolverine has a very long list of tactics cards here, and we're going to start out with the kind of funny one here. Are you sure you want to remember? So this is the Weapon X leader card that can be played by either Laura or James Logan Howlett. And what's funny about this leader card is that this Wolverine isn't actually a member of the Weapon X affiliation, but because of the way the card is worded, he can be selected as the leader for the team. So what's kind of awkward and anti-synergy about this is that because he's not affiliated as Weapon X, and the way this leadership is worded specifies that only Weapon X characters can benefit from it, um, he can't benefit from his own leadership when he plays this card. So it's a little awkward. Um, there are people out there who try to make it work, but generally speaking, you're probably better just playing Logan, the second Wolverine that released. So yeah, we're not going to talk too much about this one. It's just kind of funny that it works like this, and power to you if you want to try. But yeah, that's technically an option you have. The next tactics card we're going to look at here is Fastball Special. This is a team up card with Colossus. It can be played on anyone's turn, so it doesn't even have to be Colossus or Wolverine's turn, but you do have to have both of them, and it is unaffiliated. So you don't have to be playing them in X-Men, which is probably where it was kind of designed for. You can be, let's say, splashing Colossus in Avengers or splashing both of them somewhere if you want. And yeah, you can still play this card. So it says if Colossus is within range 2 of an allied Wolverine, both characters may spend 1 power to play this card. Throw the allied Wolverine medium. Wolverine does not suffer collision damage during this throw. Enemy characters that he collides with roll 2 fewer dodge dice and suffer the bleed special condition. So this is where we come back to that ability of Wolverine to count himself as a size 3. So now you are throwing 4 guaranteed damage at your opponent for 2 power, 1 off of Colossus, 1 off of Wolverine, and they get 2 less dodge dice, which is going to bring a lot of characters down to 1, maybe 2 dice on their dodge. So yeah, this is really good. Obviously, they can just play Brace for Impact to kind of get around that. But they still are. Oh, yeah, no, they do still suffer the bleed if they pay Brace. So I mean, you still get something out of it. It's probably not worth using the card though. You want to probably bait out Brace first. Um, but yeah, very solid card. If you're playing the two models anyways, I think it's definitely worth considering. Out of activation, or out of that character's activation, damage is really solid. So yeah, definitely worth considering. Great way of just kind of being like, well, that character lived, and I didn't want him to live, so we're gonna throw Wolverine at him. And you can also just use this to get Wolverine up the board faster as well. I mean, he does have his charge, but maybe he only has one power. So you play this to throw the Wolverine at them first, and then he can just go to town slashing. So yeah, really, really solid card for him there. Next in his tactic card here is Jean, and this is a team up card with Jean Grey. Now it can be played by either Cyclops or Wolverine, and it is also unaffiliated. This one is reactive, unlike the previous ones. So it's going to be played on your opponent's turn most of the time. It says when an allied Jean Grey is dazed or KO'd, after the effect is resolved, an allied Cyclops or Wolverine may play this card. The character that played this card immediately performs an attack. So yeah, that's really, really solid. You can definitely screw up an opponent's turn with this one. You have, Jean goes down or something like that, and Wolverine can use his spender off of this card to, like we were talking earlier, damage them, place on the objective they were standing on or whatever, and then throw them away. You get to do this, before they would have a chance to maybe pick up an objective that Jean dropped or something like that. So once again, if you're playing the two cards, it can definitely be worth or the two models, it can definitely be worth considering, especially if you also have Cyclops there for that kind of, options now, whether Cyclops or Wolverine is better suited to do that. The attack doesn't have to be into the character that dazed or KO'd Jean as well, and you could even play around with things to kind of make it so you trigger this card on your own turn. I can think of a few niche situations where you might want to do that. Um, even something like, oh, I let Jean's bleed kill her instead of shaking it or something like that. But you could go further than that too. You could totally have, I don't know, on uh maybe you're also playing Colossus and you play fastball special, you throw Wolverine at Jean instead, take out Jean, and then you've now put Wolverine in a position where he can actually spender a enemy character that's on an objective or something like that with that mobility. That's a kind of a niche example, but there are some cool things you can kind of do with that, so definitely worth considering. Next up in the list here is Pardon Me, Suga. This is Rogue's card, and it is unaffiliated as well. So again, if you're playing with Rogue and Wolverine, you can use this card, and there are a ton of different characters it applies to, so I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but basically the idea is Rogue takes a select power or thing that a character does from that character, and then they take one damage. So the one with Wolverine, and it does have to be played during Rogue's turn, is that if they're within range two of each other, she takes his healing factor to superpower. He still has it, but she does too, and he takes one damage for it. So, Wolverine, of course, you can usually take that because he can healing factor back from that, or maybe you're trying to set up so he gets a better turn with on his injured side. Now he's getting extra damage dice for that. So there's some cool little synergies with that. Generally speaking, I don't think very many people actually run this card, but also I don't see Rogue and Wolverine in the same list all that often, so yeah, maybe there's something there, but yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. I just haven't seen it played very much, so I can't talk too much about it. But there's a lot of characters, so if you're running a few of them and there's a few of them that you want to take advantage of, it could definitely be worth considering there. The next tactics card in the list here is Weapon X Program, and this is the first card I think in the list, other than the leadership, that he can play without having an ally there with him to play it. And it just says Wolverine or Sabretooth may spend 3 power to play this card. Once again, it's unaffiliated, and this character is thrown small. It does not suffer damage if it collides with another character or terrain feature. So again, taking advantage of the fact that he counts as a size 3 here, you throw them small, that's just 4 damage coming at someone that they have to try to get around. Typically, you're not using this for mobility because it does cost more than his charge cost, so you are just kind of using this for extra damage. But that option is there too if you really need to like cross the board fast. Can definitely consider using this to kind of like, move, throw yourself small sort of thing. If you're just trying to get full distance possible. But yeah, it's a solid card. A little bit on the expensive side compared to, something like the fastball special, but solid. And if you're playing Wolverine as well, or rather Sabretooth as well, you get that versatility of deciding which one is going to play the card. So that's also pretty nice. And once again, doesn't have to be their activation, so good way of kind of being like, well, so and so failed to kill this character. I'm just going to throw Wolverine at them to try and finish the job. So yeah, solid card. Definitely a consideration when bringing Wolverine because yeah, it's a good way to kind of get some extra damage in there. Next, we have Wolverines. This is a unaffiliated card with any of the Wolverines and Laura. So they can spend 3 power each to play this card. While they are within range 2 of each other, they cannot be pushed or thrown by enemy effects. They may reroll any number of attack dice, and after an attack targeting either of them is resolved, the attacking character suffers 1 damage if it did not daze or KO the target character. This effect lasts until the end of round. So this is a cool card. It's nice that they get to kind of sit there. They can't be pushed or thrown, so whatever point they're sitting on will be theirs. I could see this being interesting on like a researcher or something like that. They get full rerolls on their attack dice, which is really nice. Um, and they have a kind of like a mini crackback deterrent to attacking them if you're not confident you're going to take them out, which you can totally combine with something like exceptional healing to be like, you're definitely not going to take me out and you're going to take 1 damage. So that's pretty solid. It's a little bit on the expensive side, 3 power each, and I know both of these models are very mobile models with the things that they're doing. Wolverine with his charge and then his spender placing him off the target and Laura with her, she's got like a frenzy, and I think one of her attacks gives her a medium advance after the attack is resolved. So both these models want to be moving around a lot, which makes it a little awkward to keep them within 2 of each other. But I think on the right scenario, it can be worth considering something like that research station, where you don't really, you want to be able to be like, nope, they're not being pushed or thrown. They are sitting right here, holding these points, being annoying to kill and hitting like absolute trucks for a turn. So yeah, solid card to consider. And another thing worth considering is if you can keep him within 2 of Laura, like maybe you're just using the charge for the wilds thing, so you don't really move, but you can do his charge and then get those bonuses on wilds with full rerolls, which can hit really hard, especially if you're like on your injured side and now you have all these extra dice for any damage you've taken. Lots of interesting things with that. So interesting card, but I think it's very situational where it's going to be cool, like really good. And then the last one here is Yoink, and this is a Deadpool card. It's unaffiliated as well, so actually I don't think any of these were affiliated except the leadership, which you're realistically not using with Wolverine, so that's always nice to see. And it is played during Deadpool's activation, and he basically gets to pick one of the effects based on who he's beside, and one of them is Wolverine. So if an allied Wolverine is holding an objective and within 2 of Deadpool, you place the objective held by Wolverine onto Deadpool, and he is now holding that objective. This card does not allow a character to hold more tokens than the crisis specifies. So basically, Wolverine can pass off objectives to Deadpool. It's reasonably solid. I don't know, like if you're not planning on using some of these other effects on the card and you're just kind of using this for versatility purposes, you might be better with just mission objective, which lets you do this anyways, with any characters, but still it's interesting and there are other things that are relevant here. So yeah, solid list of cards here and very funny if you're playing against Bob. So yeah, that's what it is. Not much more to say about that. But that is his tactics card. Very long list of tactics cards for Mr. Wolverine here. Probably the longest in the series and maybe one of the longest in the game. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot here. So next we're going to go ahead and talk about the affiliations, and Wolverine is a member of 4 affiliations, although there's been an argument that he should really just be a rogue agent because Wolverine has been a part of everything. But yeah, his 4 affiliations are Avengers, Defenders, X-Men, and X-Force. So we're going to go ahead and talk about some of those. So Avengers is where he has been played the most by me personally. I have put him out a couple of times under a couple of their leaders just to try him out and see how he does, because he does have some really interesting things. So the 2 leaders that I've played him under are the first Steve Rogers, who reduces his superpowers by 1 and can provide a bodyguard, which can be kind of cool on his flip side to be like, well, I have exceptional healing to him to keep him alive on 1, and now the rest of your attacks are going into Steve. So he is going to get to do his thing. So there's a cool synergy right there with that bodyguard ability, and I do like having those types of abilities for him, so that way you don't have to burn exceptional too soon as well. You can have models with better defensive tech just kind of take the hits instead. And then you also have the leadership reducing his superpowers. Now, the only thing it reduces for him is his charge, but it does allow him to do his charge round one. And there is kind of an interesting combo you can do with that, where you can charge into a spender if you use no matter the cost, which allows you to basically take 3 damage to use that towards 3 power of an attack. So his spender costs 3, so you no matter the cost, your spender, you take 3 damage, which you're going to end up healing factoring 2 anyways. And so now turn one, you've charged, made a range 3 medium attack, or you've charged a medium move, made a range 3 attack, which does hit the center line. So any models like contesting a midline objective, you'll be able to hit with this. You place yourself on them, you hopefully throw them off of the point, and maybe do a bunch of damage with the cost reducted attack. And if you weren't able to get in, because I actually thinking about that again, I think they have to be like on the closer end of the objective for that to work. You can always have moved and then done this, but if you were able to do this in a single attack, maybe you were able to bring them closer, but in some way, or they just, they played towards you. Um, you then get to attack them again, but you might actually have to move to get it in. Definitely check your distances and that, because that can be a tight measurement, depending on the angle and how things are set up. So be careful with it, but it's a really really powerful turn one combo of just kind of being like, yeah, we're gonna move him up. He's going to charge. He's going to hit you for a bunch of damage, probably. He's going to throw you away, and he's going to take your point. And then he's going to healing factor most of the damage off of the no matter the cost. So he's still looking pretty good after this. And of course, the one time I tried to do this, I got one success on the attack, and then he died for his sins. So wasn't great. Definitely not always going to work out, but is a very strong combo that your opponent's definitely going to have to be scared of, because it won't always go as poorly as it did for me. Um, the other model that I think works really, really well for him in Avengers as a leader is Steve 3, where if you have a hit, basically you can pay 1 power to change one of your other dice to any other result on attacks. Once per turn, but that's totally fine because you're trying to use this on Wolverine's charge attack, where he's getting those wilds counting as 2. So again, you can do kind of the same thing that you were trying to do um, in the Steve 1 version. You just can't do it on round 1, but you can get that spender going. Use the leadership on that spender attack, so this is going to cost you a total of 4 power. Um, but use that leadership to um, get an extra wild in there guaranteed, which is going to help you push through the damage, which will help you get that throw, and then you're getting the place no matter what. So lots of good things you can do with that, and just on a turn by turn, this will be really good for pushing through extra bits of damage, pushing through that wild pierce even to help you build up power, whatever you're trying to do. Yeah, really, really solid leadership to have for Mr. Wolverine there. The other leaders in Avengers, I don't think work too well for him. I don't think they're necessarily bad for him, but he's already kind of mobile, so he does not really get too much out of Sam. And outside of exceptional healing, I don't consider him super bulky, so the healing isn't as big for him either. He's already kind of got his own built-in healing, and I don't think he needs much more. It doesn't hurt, like it's certainly not a bad thing for him, but I don't think it's really anything that he particularly needs, and he's already kind of ignoring the special conditions he hates the most. So those are mostly fine. Um, and then Hulkbuster's leadership, unfortunately, just isn't all that good. But I mean, it's there. But yeah, I think his synergy with both of the Steves is really, really solid. So definitely worth trying him out under either of them. And I mean, you have Deadpool if you're playing that card, so that's there too. Um, I don't think there's too many other like specific synergies in Avengers that I can kind of see for him, but he is a fairly self-sufficient model outside of, he does appreciate some leadership abilities a lot. So yeah, I don't think there's too much else he's really getting out of Avengers there. I mean, Avengers Assemble is just a great card, but otherwise he's pretty content there. The second affiliation he is a part of is Defenders, and there's only 2 leaders here for Defenders. The first one is Daredevil, and I think he really likes Daredevil's leadership. The charge is going to help him line himself up to get the maximum number of rerolls possible relatively frequently. He's got a place on one of his attacks, which will also help with that. Note that the place does still happen after you've rolled dice, so you won't have the rerolls based on where you place. You'll have it based on where you started. So Definitely have to consider that when using this leadership with him. But still, really, really solid combo. You can pair him with something like Wong to still be able to do that thing we were doing in Steve One Adventures, where you're giving him that extra power so he has his charge online and he can charge into a spender. Note that you can kind of always do the spender round one without the charge, even if you don't have Wong, because you could just move and try to get range 3 on something and spender them with no matter the cost right out the gate. But with either Wong or Steve One or some other way of getting an extra power, you can do it with the charge for the wilds count as two, which is obviously better. So yeah, kind of have access to that type of strategy here under either of the leaders. So yeah, I think with Daredevil, there's some good synergy there. Those rerolls will definitely help you fish for those wilds and also just get more damage in general, which is good. Turns out Daredevil's leadership is really strong. So yeah, I think there's a solid synergy there. You can even use like Baton Hook to try and pull things into range for that spender turn one. If you're a little worried about, you don't know if you can afford the charge, you're worried you're not going to have a target otherwise. You can use Daredevil to kind of help you get that. But yeah, so solid synergy there. I think as far as Doctor Strange is concerned, it's not terrible. The healing can be nice for him on top of his healing factor, keep him alive on the healthy side as long as possible. The leadership is reasonably interesting for him because he does only have physical attacks. So being able to throw out a mystic or an energy attack with him could be really, really nice. And you're throwing out the hex condition, so you can help, get better odds on doing damage on that spender. Throw out the hex condition and the throw. Definitely some interesting things you could do with that. So yeah, I don't dislike it for him. Unfortunately, Strange has kind of proven to be the worst of the two leaders for defenders just in general, but I think the leadership itself works reasonably well with him. So yeah, it's solid in that sense, and he can give him some extra defensive dice to help bolster him defensively as well. So yeah, not bad things, just not necessarily anything he's looking for too heavily. Um, Definitely I lean towards Daredevil for Mr. Wolverine in defenders here, but still not bad. The next one he is affiliated in is X-Men, and right away I'm going to point towards both Scott and Professor X. I was about to say Scott and Cyclops, but those are totally the same person. Cyclops and Professor X leaderships can both be really nice for doing, again, that same kind of combo we were talking about with Avengers and with Wong, of getting the extra power to be able to make that spender attack round one. Really, really strong with him. So both of them kind of work interestingly with it in different ways. With Cyclops, you'll need someone else to go first and do some damage. So there's a little bit of inconsistency with that part. Maybe Cyclops himself can do it though, because he does have range for attacks. So anyone who Wolverine would have been able to hit, Cyclops would have been able to hit as well. So Cyclops could push out some damage there and then send a power over to Wolverine to go and finish the job. And then Wolverine hopefully does the damage and can pass the power back to somebody else, so you can kind of keep the train going like that. With Professor X, you have a little bit more consistency. You can use some. Basically, it's a similar superpower, but or similar leadership, but when you use a superpower instead of when you deal damage, you get to pass power to your allies. So, Xavier's is kind of guaranteed to happen if you want it to happen. You just bring something like Magic or Nightcrawler, who can just place themselves range one as a one cost superpower turn one. And then, that passes a power to Wolverine, who can now do his thing. And when he does his thing, that is, of course, a superpower. So you get to pass a power to somebody else again and just kind of keep the chain rolling there. You do have some nice kind of benefits here. Obviously, some really really good cards like First Class kind of enables a lot of these things. It enables you to do this and then still pick up an objective. So because you're doing a spender here, maybe you one shot them with the spender, and now oh no, first world problems. You've one shot their character, but you have no power to pick up their objective. Well, First Class says yeah, you do actually. So yeah, obviously, suffering from success at that point, but solid combos there. You do have a lot of the characters with those tactics cards that he had combos with in this affiliation. You have Colossus, and you have Rogue, who both had a tactics card that worked with him, and you have X-23. So you've got all three of them there, able to kind of benefit from that. As far as Storm goes, she does give him some defensive abilities as well, with that outside of range 2 reroll is nice for him. I don't think he's using the bump necessarily too often because he's got kind of his own mobility fairly well on his own card, but you could kind of easily line him up to allow other characters to hop off of him. So he can be solid with her leadership as well, but I definitely think he leans more towards either Scott or Professor X there. So yeah, he's generally speaking just a solid model. You have other models that can kind of boost him defensively as well, like Kitty Pryde or Cable. Both of them can kind of help keep him alive as well. So you've got some interesting options available for him here, and I definitely think it's one of his stronger homes if you're trying to build a more fighty option for your X-Men here. He's a worthy include for sure. The last one he's affiliated in is X-Force, where Cable is the leader. We already kind of talked about how, Cable can kind of give him those defensive buffs, and we will also mention that he has many of the cards that he has available to him, many of the team-up cards, rather. Colossus, Sabretooth, Deadpool, and X-23 are all here, so all of them have those team-up cards with him, and that's definitely nice to have. I also didn't mention this before, but Colossus does have the added benefit of having a bodyguard ability, which can be really nice for keeping Wolverine alive in those similar situations we talked about with Steve 1 Captain America. But then we go back to Cable here, and his leadership is pretty solid for Wolverine. Wolverine is already kind of operating within range 3, so he's going to get to benefit from the leadership's full effect most of the time, and it just gives him a reroll, including skulls. This is just good. There's not much more to say about it than that. Being able to ignore cover when using that spender as well is going to be really nice. Help push through the damage there with that reroll as well. Yeah, this is just good. There's not much more to it than that. One of the interesting things with this as well is you can play the card, I'm blanking on what it's called, but the X-Force affiliated card that'll let you place a model range 2 up from their current location. So if you're playing on Infinity Formula specifically, you can, or I mean, any scenario where you're willing to do a move action and then a spender. But if you're playing on Infinity Formula specifically, it's already better of you put him up, you have him contest the Infinity Formula at the very start of the game, so he gains that extra power round 1, and voila, you have your charge and spender online round 1, and that should be enough movement to get to your opponent's back Infinity Formula point as well. So you are threatening a significant portion of the board with a model that hasn't even activated yet, and they have to play very cautiously around that. I've definitely had that puzzle posed to my face before, and it's very awkward to play around. So really powerful. Yeah, very strong with that card in this affiliation, combined with the reroll off of Cable and stuff like that, making it even more lethal. Very strong combination. Once again, we're still using No Matter the Cost for this. I can't stress enough how good both No Matter the Cost and Exceptional Healing are with Wolverine. He adores both of these cards. So yeah, really strong synergy here, and probably one of his strongest like synergies with the affiliation out of all the ones we looked at here. I think the he's getting kind of two things that he really wants out of this one, whereas most of the affiliations are giving him only one, and then he's also got all of these models that pair really well with him as well. So yeah, definitely a strong place for him. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about other places he might be good because turns out Wolverine has a lot of affiliations and a lot of tactics cards. So we've already gone way over time for this video compared to what I usually like to keep these videos around lengthwise. But I think generally when you're looking at other affiliations, you're going to be wanting to look at things that will help with a dice fixing, specifically if you can like turn a side of a die to the face you want it to. I think the only place you can actually do that specifically is Avengers with Steve 3, but really good with him. So dice fixing in general, stuff like Guardians would be great for him if you can afford to give him that winging it token. We've already talked about a lot of the kind of best dice fixing places, but even just like Wakanda or Shield with their reroll leaderships, those are both probably quite solid for him. Um, yeah, I think he's already affiliated a lot of the places that he really likes to be. It's kind of hard to add too many more to that because like he does so much in the places where he's already affiliated. But I could see an argument for him somewhere like Cabal. I think Red Skull 3 Spender, just again helping him push out more damage. You really want this piece to just go in, hit like an absolute truck. Um, so being able to help him do that is obviously really, really good. I think Midnight Suns is interesting with him. It's definitely one of the places he should probably be affiliated. But you have Wong here, so again you've got that synergy with Wong we talked about in Defenders. I think he does somewhat appreciate the bump in the night leadership. I think it can be interesting and kind of put that little cherry on top of his mobility that's already quite good. So I think there's some cool combos there. But yeah, I in humans you can power him up to again do that turn one play. I can't stress enough how good that turn one play is. It's very, very powerful with him. There's a lot of interesting things. Criminal Syndicate, Kingpin, again, we're gonna go back to that turn one play. I'm gonna keep mentioning it. Of hey, I'm able to, move, charge. You'll have to splash something like Wong or Advanced R&D to put the charge online, but move, charge, spender, place myself on your back infinity formula. I'm worth two models and I threw one of yours off. Good luck keeping this point. Um, Lots of really strong combos with him there. So yeah, I am not going to go over every single one in detail because we are well over the time that I've been trying to keep these videos around for the last few, but lots of good options for him here, and definitely consider playing around with him in a few different places to kind of see where he works best because he is a very, very strong model, and I think he can play well in a lot of different affiliations. But that is going to do it for this character spotlight. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do character spotlights like these every week. We try not to let them go this long though. And we also do battle reports and things like that on the weekends. So if you like any of those things, feel free to jump on in. Please do let me know down below where your favorite places to run Mr. Wolverine are. Curious to hear what you guys think. If there's anything that I missed that's like a really powerful synergy with him. I know I kind of jumped on that turn one play synergy a lot with him because I do think it's really, really strong, and I think there's a lot of things that enable it to be even stronger. So personal favorites is definitely those. But definitely let me know if I missed something. I haven't played Wolverine as much as I probably should have. I just every time I make that charge attack, I can't roll a single wild and it bites me every time. But yeah, let me know where you guys have found success with them. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think and maybe try them out in some of the places you guys recommend. Always love to hear where you guys are playing these characters that we do these spotlights on. But yeah, that is going to do it for my part for this video. So once more, I hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, have a great day. Peace.